Hey there, and welcome to Business Over Cocktails. I'm Lauren Najar, your host and hype woman, bringing you real talk about entrepreneurship. This is the podcast where we dive into the bold whys, the messy middles, and the game-changing aha moments that lead to success. You'll hear unfiltered stories from entrepreneurs, plus bite-sized solo episodes inside the Business Chaser series, where we cut through the noise and get straight to what actually drives sales, visibility, and growth. So whether you're here to get fired up or finally feel seen in your business journey, pull up a seat, pour your favorite drink, and let's have a real conversation. Hi all, welcome back to another episode of Business Over Cocktails. I am Lauren, and today I have Deanna with me. And Deanna, we've been connected for some time, and she's been one of my clients. And I'm so excited to have this conversation because this is going to be such a good topic, especially when it comes to money, finances, things that people don't want to talk about. So Deanna is a money mindset coach and a financial mentor. Her favorite thing is building first generational wealth. And I just want to add a little bit is like one of the things that I feel like makes her unique is that usually what has happened to you in your past or like where you come from or your finances and your story, like that doesn't mean that has to be your future. And so like anytime we've had our conversations or anytime you're posting content, I feel like for me at least, you want to help people rewrite their finance and their money story. So I think that is like truly unique about like what you do.
Hey, thanks for having me, Lauren. So yeah, we have been connected a long while now. It's been, I think, 3 years.
Yeah.
Roughly, but yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the finances, like so many people, I didn't grow up with anything handed to me. We moved a lot. We didn't have hardly anything. And I just knew, adults around me using all those phrases that we hear about the money not growing on trees and wealthy people are greedy and all the stupid things we hear. We see it on TV, we hear it at school. And I was like, I don't know that I'm buying into any of this. Like, you see people go from rags to riches. You see people climb out of situations and you think, we're taught to believe that those are just like anomalies. Like it just doesn't normally happen. And I think the only reason that it doesn't is because more people accept the status quo. They accept everything they've ever been told and they don't work at changing what they believe to be true for themselves. And as soon as you do that, your habits start to change as well. And so that's kind of how I got started. I was very young when I said, I just am not going to swallow this. I'll follow what they tell me to do until I'm old enough to make my own decisions. And then away I go. It was like a kid on a bike with the speed wobbles, Like, that was the beginning of my journey. So
how would you describe who you are like outside of your job title? And I'll say like you live in a really, at least for me, because I live in the Midwest and we're flatlands, you live in a place where you can like literally go play outside. And I know you live in like a colder climate too, but like you have so much landscape by you. And so for me, you're very outdoorsy, at least more outdoorsy than I am. But how do you describe yourself outside of what you do?
I am very resilient. A lot from I had to be growing up. But yes, we live in the Rockies. It's very mountainous, very rugged. I probably could survive the zombie apocalypse. I'd do just fine, I'm sure. My kids, I've raised 4 kids pretty much on my own. No family help really after my mom passed away. And so my kids they would describe me as somebody who they love immensely, but also find incredibly scary because it's kind of it's not my way or the highway. It's my way. You live under my roof. We're just doing things my way because otherwise there's 4 of you and 1 of me and I'll get steamrolled. So I just I laid some very tough ground rules. Quick, funny story. When I graduated high school, I got along with pretty much everybody I went to high school with. I was just that kid. And this one girl walks up to me and after graduation, day of graduation, she goes, "You're so much nicer than I actually thought. Like, I always thought you were going to beat me up in high school." And I was like, "What?" I was like, "Oh no, I actually scare people." It's like, and I've heard that repeatedly throughout the years that I come off as a little bit scary. So apparently my RBF is like top notch,
Yeah.
but I'm actually a lot more down to earth. I genuinely care about human beings, about people's stories. It's why I love to work one-to-one with people, because they get so much more into detail and comfortable, and they share the things that they really need to share to get a real result.
Mm,
You're sharing superficially, you're going to get superficial results. When you get to the nitty-gritty of what's been holding you back, you're going to get a different result. It's that breakthrough that people need, and you often need a custom private space to do that. And so I love working one-to-one. And yeah, that's how I describe myself. I'm actually a teddy bear on the inside, but I am like Commando G.I. Joe teddy bear on the outside, apparently. So,
oh my God, I love that. Wait, I want to go back to the zombie apocalypse thing that you mentioned. Okay, so like, yes, I do believe that you probably could survive more than a lot of people, but what is your weapon of choice?
oh, I guess it depends on who's orchestrating this, because if you've ever watched zombie movies, they're either really fast or really slow. So if they're really slow, I want like the long sword, just to be
Ooh,
at them. But if they're fast, I'm taking the gun, like, and I'm pretty
yeah.
accurate with the gun. I can shoot. I mean, plinking cans is like a date night activity around here. So
Uh,
in high school, if the boy asked you out, you pretty much knew you were going shooting or four-wheeling.
Oh
So
my God. Wait, I've never heard that term, plinking cans.
yes.
I would assume that means setting up cans far away and you have a gun and you're shooting them.
Yes, exactly. Yep, a good old 22 or a 17. Yeah. So, regular date
That
nights
is
around here. You can shoot if you live in the northwest corner of Montana. We're good.
that's so funny. I feel like where I live is definitely being built up, but I feel like this area probably might have had that, like, or does that, or like knows what that term is, but I do not. That was not my life. That was that's not, I'm not familiar with that phrase. But you know what? So I used to love The Walking Dead. And Michonne is the one with the two swords,
Yep.
and she was by far my favorite. And yeah, the Walking Dead zombies on that show are not fast.
No. No, she's definitely got the right weapon for sure.
Mhm. Yeah, I
So,
love that. So what's part of your story most people don't know, and part of, like, the story that, like, makes you who you are today and why you went to finance coaching?
okay. So, I got straight A's, did the college thing, everything they tell you to do. I did, and I excelled at it, like, out of spite. Like, you told me that I came from a crappy background and I couldn't do this? F you. Watch me go. And so I was doing really well, and I had a plan. Like, they tell you make a plan, because if you don't have a plan, you'll just kind of wander and fall astray. And so I had this plan post college of how I was going to achieve all these goals, own my own home, all the things that they tell you are part of the American dream. And I finished college, couldn't get a job in my degree. I was working two jobs, and I had my first kid. So, there's always things that come into your plan that kind of derail you and throw you for a loop. And that's just life, and life happens, and it's how we react to it. And I was still kind of managing to stay on the plan somewhat. And then age 25 come around, and I went through a breakup, and I went through identity theft that cost me more than $40,000 in under 5 weeks. And at that time, I had two kids and I was pregnant with twins. And so it just kind of was like this culmination of, I had that moment of, what the hell happened to my plan, and nothing is now going the way I thought I would. And some people will use the term rock bottom. I wouldn't even say I was there yet. I was more like in the hurricane going, what is going on? I couldn't even get my grounding. There was just so much stuff going wrong all at once that I was frustrated. And 2005 to 2007 was just kind of a whir, because I was pregnant with twins. I was having complications. I was driving to Seattle. I was trying to build a business. I had already had one business succeed and fail. And so I remember in 2007, the twins were a year. I also had a 3 and a 4-year-old. And I was sitting in the living room, and I just started crying. And it was that I'm going to fail them. I'm going to fall into the trap that my parents said I was going to fall into. And I'm going to live the life that they predicted that I was going to live. And I got really angry, like so angry, like defiant angry. And I said, absolutely not. Like, I refuse. I don't care that I got knocked off my plan. I don't care how far knocked off my plan I got. Like, I will find a different way. Like, I refuse to slide back into that and repeat this generational bullshit, I guess. I don't know if we're allowed to curse on this podcast, but just did.
You can go ahead. Go right
That's
ahead.
what I was so angry. I was like, I did everything right. Everything they told me to do in high school, all the things they told me to do, I did to break out of that pattern. And here I am repeating it. And so I was really mad. And in my moment of, I don't know if you call it desperation or just defiance, I sold my only vehicle and bought tickets to a leadership seminar in Spokane, Washington. That was $3,500 for a weekend. To rewind, I was just the victim of identity theft, had 4 kids, and I was single at the moment, like technically. So I had like $18 to my name, and I sold my car. My friends thought I was crazy. My mom, who was still alive at the time, called me everything but normal. They had some harsh words for me. Yeah, I mean, everybody just kind of disowned me. Like, they're just like, you're insane. You have absolutely lost your mind. And I went to this seminar with some friends, and I was walking around. I had literally packed a lunch to take with me because I had no money to buy any food when we got there. And I had saved a little bit of money and bought a book at this seminar, this leadership book. And I was really wanting to get it signed, and I was going to have to stand in line forever, right? I didn't. I took it with me to go to the bathroom because I didn't want to leave it in my seat. I didn't want somebody to steal my book. And who do I run into in the hallway but John C. Maxwell himself, the literal
Wow.
headliner at this show. And this is one of those, the first time that I felt seen. The guy didn't just shake my hand and say hi and send me on my way after signing my book. He sat there and talked to me for a good 15, 20 minutes. And he wasn't just listening to listen, he was hearing me.
Yeah.
And he gave me the most practical advice in that moment, took my name and phone number. And when I walked out of there, my life was different. Like, I had a renewed sense of hope that I would find a new plan, that I would climb out of this shithole spot that I was in, that everything would kind of work itself out okay. I knew that wasn't going to happen overnight. It was going to be a climb. And a lot of that was decisions that I had made. I had to take a lot of responsibility for making some very crappy decisions in my relationship life and career-wise, kind of sacrificing wanting to stay in Montana and not move to a big city. There's pros and cons with rural living. And so I had to kind of own radical responsibility for all of that. But then letting go of and forgiving the things that had happened that I didn't have any control over, which took a bit. I was really, like I said, I was incredibly angry. And some of that was justified, but hanging on to it was keeping me there, stuck. And so really learning how to do the mindset work needed to change this. Because he said, you've already built a 6-figure business and you lost it. And then you started to build another one and that fell apart. And he goes, your know-how isn't the problem. He goes, your mindset's the issue. And you were raised with this mindset. So you're going to keep bringing it to the table until you rewrite it. And it's not as easy as journaling. Like, he goes, that's the thing everybody tells you to do. Journal. Put your feelings on paper. And then what?
Yeah.
Like, what do you do with all that crap you put on the paper? Because you can journal for years and not change a dang thing. And so I got a call about 2.5 months later asking me to come speak at an event. And I was supposed to be speaking just kind of in this little side thing that they were hosting afterwards, almost like your business chaser that you're going to have for your podcast. It was kind of like these are our VIPs coming down later after the show. We want you to share your story. And so I went and I thought that's what I was going to be speaking at. That's what I was dressed for. And I ended up speaking on the main stage at the Spokane Arena in front of 10,000 people. I was completely horrified by how I was dressed, but I got up there and talked anyway. I was like, I might as well have been wearing this t-shirt right here, my little 80s retro t-shirt, because I was so underdressed it was like a black tie event for all the main speakers. They were in gowns and tuxes, and I was just like, oh my God, here we are. But it really introduced me to a lot of the right people. And at that time, I had started a job in law enforcement. And so I started doing leadership gigs with law enforcement agencies, kind of teaching them how to fix some of the problems they were having with leadership within their agencies. And then that branched out into speaking at colleges to kids that wanted leadership experience and how to go about getting that. And the Maxwell Foundation provided me with a lot of leadership training so that I was qualified to give those talks. And that went on for several years. And then this is the horrible, ugly part of the story. Everybody has one of these. Nobody has a perfect ascent to success. None of us do.
No.
Some have it easier than others, but I was on my way to I was going to the Spokane Arena for this particular talk, and I got about, I'd say 20 miles outside of Spokane, and my kids called. And I was like, what's up? And they're like, Mom, Dad's not home. And I was like, what? And they're like, Dad's not here. And I was like, are the neighbors home? Because we lived out in the middle of nowhere, basically. And my kids were not very old. And I'm supposed to be on stage later that night. And I can't get a hold of anybody to go check on my kids. Like, I didn't have any family living in town. I couldn't get a hold of the neighbors. So I have to call and cancel my main stage talk. And I was like, oh my God, this is career suicide. I knew as I was calling, I was literally committing career suicide. But I had to go home because I had 4 little kids at home, aging from age 2.5 to 6, at home alone. And I have no idea where my husband's at the time. And I get home several hours later, and my kids are still home alone, and my husband is just gone. And he had basically checked out of our marriage and started drinking and disappeared that whole weekend. And Monday, when he rolled into the house, he acted like it was no big deal that he had left our kids home alone. And I'm out of town and, going to talk and earn a living. And in that moment, I had to make a decision because I had several speaking engagements coming up and I had no way to make it happen. And so I had to withdraw from the speaking engagement world, and I started to go through a divorce. And I'm trying to run a business and I'm working in law enforcement on the side. And I've got all these speaking engagements I'm having to cancel because I've got 4 kids. And, we build a business often to have a family first lifestyle. Like, that's the main goal for so many people. If you have a family, is that you want to be able to put your family first, which is why you want to be your own boss. You want to be in control of your own schedule and stuff. And so I found myself in this very weird situation where putting my family first was going to really hurt my business.
Yeah.
So I was like, I could dump my kids with a babysitter every single time I want to leave town, which I shouldn't do because their dad already ditched them and I don't want them to feel like mom's ditching them too. Or I can take a step back. And so I chose to take a step back. And I was also going to college at the time for finance because that was part of doing my own mindset work, was learning about finance. Because I wasn't educated in the world of finance. I was not taught much anything about money growing up because we never had any. I was taught it was scarce and non-existent. So I was going to school for finance, and I decided, I'd really like to help people get out of the same boat that I was in. I'm going to pivot from leadership into money coaching. And Maxwell really encouraged that when we had a discussion, because he called to find out why I didn't make it. And we didn't get to talk till almost 2 months later by the time we actually finally connected. And he really encouraged me to make that pivot and kind of helped me make that pivot. But it was so difficult to give up something that was successful and thriving and doing so well, even though I did it for all the right reasons. And I never go back and change it. Like, I've been there for my kids since day one. I've never, missed any of their important stuff. But yeah, it was like having the wind just sucked out of your sails. Like, just as your business is really starting to take off and thrive and you're doing all these things and there's all this momentum, and then the rug just went slap on your face. And so I really had to work to rebuild that. And I started signing one-to-one clients in the finance sector as far as coaching people financially. I was interviewing lots of millionaires at the time, most of whom were introduced to me by the Maxwell Foundation. And I started taking a lot of notes on what they were doing that most of the rest of us don't do, because they don't call them the 1% for no reason, or, and now it's closer to like the 3%. There's actually a lot more millionaires in this country than there used to be. But there's a handful of very specific things that they do differently, and their willingness to pivot and adapt and change their mindset and not be really stuck in, this is how I've always done it, so this is what I'm going to do. And so many of us do that, where this is how we were raised, so this is how we're going to do things. Well, sometimes how you're doing things is exactly why you keep falling on your face. And so, yeah, I feel like the move from leadership coaching to finance coaching was a very slow process. It didn't have the momentum behind it that getting into leadership coaching did. And I had to allow myself to ditch the hustle culture, because I had 4 kids in tow and I was doing it completely alone. Like a lot of parents, they'll say, I'm a single parent, but their kids go to their dads every other weekend, or they go to their moms every other weekend, or, they go stay with grandma for a week or grandpa for a week. My kids didn't go anywhere. They were with me 100% of the time, all the time. And so I was like, I'm going to have to do this in a way that's sustainable, that allows me to be there for my kids, do things for myself, like fill my own cup, and still build a business. And so there was days where I got really impatient with myself and still do on occasion. But I found that slowing down actually allows you to speed up, because sometimes when you're going really, really fast, you can build something great, but then it falls apart because you just can't sustain that forever. We're human beings. We're not wired to go 24/7 for 24/7. You get really exhausted. You learn to be resentful of what it is you're doing when you're so busy that you neglect your spouse, you neglect your kids, and you're like, wait, this is why I got into this. And so there was a handful of years ago, I want to say probably 2018 to 2020, I felt like we were seeing a lot of that hustle and slay and chase and all the things. And I was like, no, I don't want no part of any of that, because I know it's such a recipe for disaster, for your mental health, for your physical health. It's just, yeah, you can build a 6-figure business in a matter of months, but do you really want to?
Yeah.
I know the dollar sound enticing, but ultimately creating something that's sustainable, that allows you to put what's morally important to you first, which is never the dollars. I don't care what anybody says. The dollars are just a means to an end. They're a tool. Like, we do it for other reasons, because we enjoy helping people, because we want to spend more time with our family, because whatever. It's never simply because I want to make money. Like,
Yeah.
money's a byproduct of whatever you're good at. And that's how it should be. But that hustle culture, people are chasing money, and they were like rabbits. I was kind of laughing. I was like, oh, let's jump on this shiny thing. Let's do master resale rights. Oh, I don't like this. I hate it. Let's do drop shipping. And they're just kind of hopping around, and they're not really good at any of them, but they build a business really, really fast. And then when they decide they hate what they're doing, they jump to the next thing and jump to the next thing. And I'm like, ugh. Oh, Lord, I wish I could work with all of you, but I have no desire to mass coach. So we work with one at a time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What do you think has kept you going over like all of those tough experiences?
A genuine love to see people climb out of generational poverty.
Mm.
Yeah. I mean, seeing people that have never known anything other than struggle finally get it, finally realize that that doesn't have to be their story, that doesn't have to be their life, and that things can be easier, and that it doesn't have to take a 5-year plan, a 10-year plan. I mean, when I finally did the work, like real mindset work, not the superficial crap, my life turned a 180 in about 18 months. I mean, I went from counting change out of the ashtray of my truck to put gas in it, to taking all 4 of my kids to Hawaii paid for in cash in 18 months. And it was just, there was nothing, people are like, well, what did you land a different job that paid? No, like literally no. I went through my spending and my earning with a fine tooth comb, but my wage didn't change that whole time. But how I talk to myself about money, how I paid myself first changed. Most people will pay their bills first and then save what's left after. I flipped that in completely around. I paid my savings first every month. And if I didn't have enough to pay my bills, they were late. Like I refused to not put money in my savings every single month after that point. And that was pivotal. And a lot of people will teach you the same thing about investing, the same thing about building an emergency fund. And it's so counterintuitive to what we're taught. We're taught to pay our bills first because that's the responsible thing to do. And if you're living paycheck to paycheck, you think, well, I got to pay my bills first. And of course, you have to pay your rent or your mortgage and you need groceries. But everything beyond that, I'm like, my savings gets paid first. If that means my phone gets shut off for the month, oh, well. Like, that's where I was at. I was so ready to do it different. I was like, I tried to do mindset work in the past and I felt like I'd fallen on my face more than once. And it was because I was doing the superficial stuff that is taught by so many coaches out there. It's just so superficial. And when I finally got a mentor that said, this is how we're going to do this time around, and she would ask me questions that made me uncomfortable, honestly. It was really unnerving the first time that I got coached for real. Like, I had been coached in the leadership sector, which I was comfortable with because you don't have to talk about anything personal in that space. But when it came to money, and, you're not just talking about money, you're talking about how you were raised, your interactions with your parents, your community. Like, you start to get very personal. And if you didn't have a gravy train lifestyle growing up, it draws you out. And so I remember being taken aback and almost being like, we need to pump the brakes here. Like, I don't even know if I can answer that. Or I would answer something and she would know that I was holding back. And she'd be like, Deanna, no, tell me how you really feel. Because if you were being honest with me right now, you'd be sobbing probably. So I know you're holding back on me. And getting real coaching for the first time and that very first call, getting off of there and going, that was the most valuable hour of my life in a human to human conversation. Like, that coaching thing clicked, and I had it in sports growing up. You see the value of coaching in sports. You see the value of coaching, when it comes to certain things, but a lot of people don't when it comes to their money. They're like, wait, you want me to spend money so that I can create more money or make more money or save more money, but you're asking me to spend it first. And I was one of those people. I was like, wait, you want me to invest a bunch of money, but I'm trying to make more money or save more money? And that's the mentality I grew up with. But when I finally got the coaching and I had that first hour with her, and I was like, holy crap, that's what actually getting coached looks like. There was no, I want you to journal this. She was like, no, I don't want you to journal it. I want you to tell me right effing now. Like, I'm not going to let you get off this call and go sit in your room and sugarcoat this or whatever, no, tell me right now. And then I'd tell her and she'd be like, no, try again. And I think I've said that to you before. She's kind of the person I learned about the sugarcoating from, which I've never been one. I said, I don't sugarcoat anything. If you want sugarcoating, go get a donut. And that's I got that from her. Like, she would never let me sugarcoat anything. She really dug raw. And so I had already been coaching in leadership. And when I finally got that money coaching with Julie, I was like, it lit a fire. Like, this is how transformational this can be. And like I said, my whole life changed over the course of 18 months. And my kids were noticeably different when I went through that. I was very good at shielding them from crap, but they saw something in me that made them smile even more and stuff. You can only hide your crap for so long. Kids are perceptive. And they knew after my divorce and stuff that things were a bit of a struggle for us, but I tried the best to make the best for them. And when I was going through that coaching, I remember one of my twins, they were my younger kids at the time, and she said, Mom, you've been smiling so much lately, and we just love it. And I was like, oh. And so it was just kind of that, hey, it's better than a payday. It's like when you realize that everything's rippling out. And that's truly what all good coaching does, whether it be business coaching or money coaching or fitness coaching. Those things you do it for one area of your life, but it ripples into every other area of your life. Because coaching, really good coaching, changes everything, not just the one thing that you hired the coach for. It starts to change everything, you know?
Yeah. And I resonate a lot with that because like we can think of fitness coaching, right? In that way of like you're not just losing weight or becoming healthier, like you're becoming happier too. And, ever since I started my business for like I feel like I feel and maybe not right when I started my business, but like when I started like actually making some money and seeing like the writing on the wall that I could leave my 9 to 5, like when I started treating it like a normal, like a real business was when I also got really focused on like really taking care of myself. And I started seeing the correlation between how I take care of myself is how successful my business is going to be. And there's just like such a correlation between or a ripple effect in like you said, like any kind of coaching. And I also think that happens with therapy too. I over the last year and a half, I've been in therapy, doing physical therapy as well, doing pelvic floor therapy, and like all of that adds up to the person that you're, becoming and helping and like, we think immediately like to make more money in our business. Of course, it's marketing and content, all the things, but like just like how you said it earlier about like mindset plays a big role. Mindset plays such a huge role in the success of whatever it is that you're doing because it's not a how to, right? It's not a know how, it's not the how to. It really is the mindset piece as well.
Well, and so many of us unknowingly gaslight ourselves into thinking our mindset is fine. And that's a protection mechanism. None of us want to say, well, yeah, my mindset's crap. Like, we just don't. We will defensively protect ourselves, like, oh, my mindset's pretty good. We all have areas where we will self protect, and money and relationships are at the top of that. Like, you can't hide if you are totally out of shape. Like, it, you have to admit it to yourself. You can hide your finances to a certain degree, like until you can't. Relationships are a tougher one because there's two people involved in them. And so, yeah, we're all so guilty of it at times of gaslighting ourselves into saying, oh, well, my mindset's fine. It's not really that bad. Like, that's not why I'm struggling. And 90% of the time it is. You're doing all the right strategies with all the wrong mindset. Or maybe you have a couple of strategies that you're not doing that you should be doing because your mindset won't let you get to the point to do them. We make our excuses and all the things. But yeah, it's really interesting. My personal mindset work is going to look different than yours and different than the next person. There's tools that work for everybody. But for me in particular, I had to really do a lot of forgiveness work. I was holding a lot of pent up frustration and anger with having absent parents and a really crappy support system and family. And, people that didn't show up when things were going right, didn't applaud me or have my back when things were going well, and certainly didn't have my back when things were going badly. So there was a lot of forgiveness work that I had to do. And not everybody's journey looks that way. Some people have an amazing support system and their mindset's completely tweaked in a different way. And so I feel like all humans benefit from a growth mindset and saying, okay, even if this worked for me 10 years ago, maybe it's not working for me today. And maybe it is. You have to assess those things. And most people don't take the time to even question themselves about it. They just keep doing things the way they've always done them. And so eventually, fitness is always the easiest example because when something you used to do isn't working because suddenly you can't button your pants or suddenly you can't fit into that dress that you like or suddenly you eat the thing and your face breaks out. Like your body is very quick to tell you when something fitness-wise is no longer working. And I could out-train a bad diet forever and ever. And then I hit my late 30s and suddenly my body said, not anymore. No more M&Ms and Coca-Cola for breakfast, woman. Like, no. And so I was like, oh, dang it. What I was doing in my 20s and my 30s isn't going to work in my 40s. And so,
Mhm.
and we don't look at that in relationships. Relationships evolve. And what we did as teens or college kids falling in love has to change when we start a family and has to change again when we're empty nesters. And it just requires an evolving effort. of you both checking in with each other. Money, what we did as teenagers, buying lip gloss and freaking energy drinks with reckless abandon isn't going to pay off for you in your 20s. And you're really going to be screwed in your 40s if you did that all the way up until then. So it's a matter of just always evaluating. And some people get really good about doing that on their own. And some people prefer to have their mentor or their coach helping them through that process. And I always tell people, ask yourself, have I been in the same place longer than I would like to be? And if the answer is yes, you need to look into mentorship or coaching. And before you jump off that fence and actually do the investing, have I been in that place longer than I want to be more than a year or two? And if the answer is yes, you need to invest. You need to get the coach. You need to get the mentor and do your homework and find one that resonates with you. But you shouldn't stay stuck anywhere for years.
Yeah.
You're doing yourself a disservice. You're doing the people around you a disservice. The people that love you, watching you stay stuck hurts them just as much as it hurts you. We owe it to ourselves and to the people we love to make sure that we are happy in all the walks of our life. And some areas require far less maintenance than others. Everybody's different. So with money, I just learned to check in a little bit more often and keep myself on track. I've always been fiscally responsible, I feel like. But there was still things that my mindset, I was living paycheck to paycheck for so long, even though I was fiscally responsible, because my traditional beliefs about money were so flawed. Like savings was dead last. Who has any money to save? My bills sucked up all my dang money, and I didn't even have that many bills. So then I just, I went through money coaching, and it really just changed my life. And so now I have a good 2-year emergency fund, which is, I'm like, to stretch it out 2 years, I would have to definitely be watching it close, but I think I could stretch it out a full 2 years if I had to. And people are like, 2 years? I would be lucky if I have 3 months. And I'm like, nope, I've got 4 kids. I'm not comfortable with only 3 months.
Right, right. You mentioned savings first, and I actually learned that principle in high school from my economic class. And I read a book called The Automatic Millionaire, and that was basically the premise of the book. It was like, even if it's $50 from every paycheck, like set that up automatically
Yeah.
to go to your checking account or to go to a savings account. And then I forget who my economic teacher was. I forgot her name. I remember that she was young, and because she was like Miss something, and then like mid-year, like got married or something, and then she was Mrs. something else. But I remember she had us read this book. I have it somewhere still. I feel like that was one of the most impressionable books I've ever read as someone who, I think we took econ, like, I don't know if it was junior year or senior year in high school, but it was right around the time we started thinking about like what our major would be in college. And I think in junior year of high school is when you start having those meetings with like your guidance counselor, because then like you start prepping for like applications and things like that. And I remember that was the moment. So I went to college for finance. So I have a bachelor's degree in finance, and my background is a lot of finance and a lot of banking. And that book just switched it for me because I feel like I didn't really know what I wanted to do. I knew I was good at a lot of stuff, but like that book, and maybe I'll even put that in the show notes, but it came out again, when was I in high school? Like almost 20 years ago at this point. So this book came out probably 20, 25 years ago. I don't know if it's been updated since then. I think it's such a good book, and it's because I feel like it was so simple. And again, to your point of like, we think that we need to like, we have these bills to pay, we have all these things to pay, but like, even if it's just $5 a paycheck, like just put it into your savings and make savings just as important as the bills that you pay. So I wanted to reference that because that book I think was very impressionable, not only to me, but it really got me thinking of like, ooh, yeah, like I like money and I like thinking about money. And I ended up applying to colleges to go for teaching because I just thought that that was what I was supposed to do, kind of thing. But I had a psychology teacher, a former psychology teacher, see me in the guidance counselor's office and was like, "What do you really want to go for?" And he's like, "You shouldn't go for teaching."
Right.
A teacher telling me I should not go for teaching. But he was like, he was a principal at that time too. So he wasn't anywhere teaching. He was like, no, you don't need to go for teaching. What do you really want to go for? And I said, finance. And he goes, you should go for that. And like literally changed my major at orientation at the college I was going to. So like they had to like literally scribble it and like change it right then and there. And I'm so glad that I did because that's what I was fully capable of. But yeah, that book, I don't know if you've ever heard of that book, but that's such a good book. And like it goes into investing and it goes into more complicated things too. But like that, I read that book, I think like 3 or 4 times over the course of my life.
Yeah, and I don't know which specific one you're talking about. There's a couple that you're talking about likely came out when I was in high school because I graduated in 98, and there was a lot of good finance books written right after the dot-com bubble burst. And so like 2000 to 2005, there was a handful of good finance books, and the best ones really are simple. They're not overcomplicated, and they don't, you know, it's funny, I can throw out stats all day long. You can't save your way wealthy, but you do need to be paying your savings or putting it into high yield savings or investing because those automatic withdrawals and compounding interest, they just make such a difference. And it's insane to me how many high schools have dropped their finance programs. Like they don't teach financial accounting. You're lucky if you can get basic accounting in most high schools anymore. They've just completely dismissed it for math and science. And I'm like, we're a free enterprise country and we don't even teach our own enterprise system in high schools. Like we're teaching all these kids horrible, horrible viewpoints. Most of them don't even understand what compounding interest is.
Yeah.
Why a mortgage will cost them triple what they originally borrow or anything else. It's just nuts. But yeah, the best books are the simplest ones. And on side note, I just want to say it's really funny. You got talked out of teaching, but you still teach.
Oh my God, right? Oh my God. That's a big realization. Oh my God, I do.
You do all these
What is that
events.
about?
You're hosting all these events and you're teaching women how to connect and make, marketing a personable thing again instead of just being these faceless, the online space has made things so faceless in certain aspects. So I feel like people are craving those in-person events again. So it's been really exciting watching you put together these in-person events and you're teaching. And so,
That's so funny. Yeah, like I literally have a workshop on July 14th. Once this episode airs, that'll be long gone. But yeah, we're having monthly workshops. So yeah, we have one every month. And that's so interesting. I don't think I've ever thought of that. Like I've told my story and like no one has reflected that back to me and be like, but you're teaching now. Like I literally am teaching. I'm like coaching people. But you know what? I think if I still feel like this, like I don't know if I like teaching in the sense of like, I don't know, like if I think about having an impact on like youth, that doesn't
right.
sounds weird. It's going to sound bad to say. That's not something I want to impact. I think that if I were to, like, I don't mind like doing speeches and stuff, but like for me, like the thought of being in a school, working for somebody else
Right.
and like curriculum and like that just does not seem like fun to me at all. Yeah, that's so interesting. I'm like really I need to like reflect on that. Thank you for like pointing that out. That's so
You're
interesting.
teaching your own curriculum at your own pace to your own people. And that's kind of,
Yeah.
I feel like that's what all good coaches and mentors are doing. And, our best clients are coachable and are willing, and they usually outgrow us, which is awesome. They work with us for a certain amount of time and then they take their wings and they fly off and they get coaching with the next thing. And I'll never be done coaching. Every time I think I'm done, I'll take some breaks. And then I was just telling the kids the other day, I'm like, I really, really need to go back to that Pilates instructor that I had. Like I've noticed my flexibility has just gone to crap and I'm feeling stiff a little bit all over. And I worked out with her back in 2018 for a full year. I had personal training sessions and it was amazing how great I felt. And I was like, I need to go back. Like I thought I could do it on my own. I'm not doing so hot. I was for a while and she wasn't offering them during the whole COVID thing. And so I was like, oh, I really probably am going to have to go back and see her. There's always one area of our life that isn't doing quite as well as the others. And yeah, I'm going to have to hire a dating coach someday.
Yeah.
That's another podcast. But yeah, so I just feel like coaching is, in general is so beneficial. And the people that are open to it just get life-changing results that, like you said, ripple out into everything else. So,
Hmm. Yeah.
love it.
Thank you so much for sharing your story. And
Yeah.
I know there's so many different elements to what has happened to you because, like, and again, you shared a lot of that with me. So
Yeah.
I know that this was such an important story to share and just like your background because I feel like a lot of people, especially women, could relate to this and find different elements that are going to help them, especially.
Yeah.
And then money is just such a private matter and personal matter. And it's hard to talk about it. And like you said, sometimes it's hard to admit like that there's some changes or pivoting that needs to happen. So thank you for sharing your experiences with us
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
share how people can connect with you.
So, right now, I have something called Financial Fix. You can find it on my website. My website's luckylovelife.com. You can also find it in Instagram, Deanna Success Coach. So, the Financial Fix is probably the best way to get into my world because it really gives you a taste test of what one-to-one coaching would look like. You fill out a form. It asks you a lot of financial questions about your situation, very specific to you. I then go through your form and I record a private video for you. These videos run anywhere from 25 minutes to an hour on general for $35. And it's not, these videos are so custom to what what your answers are in this form. So it really gives you a taste of what would one-to-one coaching look like for me? What is she seeing that I'm not seeing on my own? What is she recommending that maybe I haven't thought of? And so I know a lot of people offer intensives and stuff like that, but with today's busy world and schedules and stuff, scheduling calls gets difficult. And so this one's very much you fill out the form at your convenience. I will record the video within 3 days, get it back to you. You can watch it within your convenience. And it gives people a real taste test because I feel like in the online space, we've seen like the free 15-minute calls. You're not uncovering anything in 15 minutes, honey. Like, in any area. I don't care if it's finance, fitness, nothing. Like 15 minutes just isn't going to do it. So it's a waste of both parties' time. And so I really wanted to offer something that gives people a taste test of what one-to-one coaching will look like. And that will help them make the decision if it's right for them or not at a price point that most people can afford simply. And so I feel like that's the best way to get into my world. But if you're on the website, luckylovelife.com, there's a whole freebies page with all kinds of different free resources that you're willing to check out. You'll end up on my email list, which you can unsubscribe to at any time. So I don't,
We don't want the unsubscribes though. They're going to be
no,
subscribed forever.
hey, if you want to be there, awesome. If you don't, if I'm not your cup of tea, I'm not everybody's cup of tea. So you find somebody else that is. But yeah, I really like Financial Fix in that it's such a low cost way to get a taste test of what one-to-one coaching looks like. And so,
Yeah.
and it gives you some practical steps you can take. Like it's not a 1 hour long webinar that tries to sell you something at the end. It's literally this is what I'm seeing. This is what I recommend you do. And if you want coaching, here you go. So that's what I recommend for anybody that's thinking about getting into financial coaching. And there's lots of us out there. Do your homework. Don't be afraid to ask questions. You should always ask questions before you hire anybody. So thanks for having me on. And yeah, I'm excited about your business cocktails episodes. When they start dropping this fall, I'm going to have to binge.
I know, I know. It's so crazy to record these because I know at the moment, right, I don't have a launch date. So people are going to hear this and be like, oh, you launched. But at the moment we're recording this, I don't have a launch date. However, we're getting very close to having a launch date. So
Yeah.
it'll be in a couple weeks where I will officially have a launch date. And I'm not even going to say a date because I can't have that being held against me. But I think it's going to be late summer, early fall. So we're getting closer. But yeah, thank you so much for coming
Awesome.
on here. I enjoyed our convo. And be sure to tune in later this week because Deanna's going to be back and walking us through more money mindset and financial topics. Be sure to tune into Business Chaser later this week. Thanks, everyone. Thanks for tuning in to another episode of Business Over Cocktails. where real stories and bold business moves come to life. If this episode lit something up in you, share it with a friend, tag me at Lauren Najar or the podcast page at Business Over Cocktails. Make sure to leave a quick review as well. It helps more than you know. Until next time, keep chasing what matters and building the business that feels like you. Cheers!